All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart, like all the way from the start.
Be forewarned, it might get a little loud.
You told me we were meant to be. I saw no end for us, just loving in between. Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you.
Now we're going to go into a really important part of the mastering process for me in a lot of tracks, which this is just kind of like the fix-all. You know, we can really just apply some glue and keep things together for anything that may not be as balanced as it should have been, or just as smooth as we might want it in terms of frequency for the mix. So this is the C4. They also have the C6. The C4, I think, is great for what it is. First, I want to just take all of these thresholds and take them up so that nothing's happening. And with any multiband compressor, when I start to work with it, I want to go ahead and set my bands in a way that makes sense to me in terms of how I want to kind of individually treat each band. So I'm going to move the first one to about 120, which is going to deal with our sub, low sub. This is where a subwoofer would actively engage, is at about 120 hertz. So we want to deal with that band. And then I'm going to move this one to about, let's say 1500, maybe 2K. And then this third one is going to be from that point up to, I don't know, maybe 7,000. And then this will be our high end, 7,000 and up. You know, you've got each of these bands, and we're going to just optimize each of them and then put it back together. So let's solo first the high band. And let me move over to one of the louder sections here. So you can hear with that soloed, we've got a little bit of harshness. I mean, obviously, we're listening to just that, so it's going to be a little different perspective, but let's go ahead and smooth this out. So I'm just adjusting the attack and the release a little bit. And now that we're getting some of that compression, I'm going to then just take the gain up. So we still get the brightness, but it's going to be controlled. So that's bypassed. And then with. So we'll just bring that up a little bit, get some more control. Now let's move on to this 1500 to 7K. And this is where a lot of that sibilance I was talking about was. Now we did make a little bit of a cut here. I'll bring that up just a little bit since we're going to be doctoring it more specifically and more precisely with the C4. But we're going to go back and let's just dial this in. So let's solo it. Let's go back over here to Reggie's verse.
To wanting to kneel. I'll play the cards, but I will deal. If you got my heart, it's cause you steal. So why you stay when you know you hate me? Don't ask me if I love you when you know I'm faded. Unless you really want the truth.
Okay, now let's move on to this section here. I'm going to give it a little bit slower attack time. Bring the gain up just a bit. And finally, our low end. And I want this to be a fast attack and a pretty fast release. I really just want this to kind of hone in on the transients, the kick, the 808, the sub type of stuff. So you can hear we just get a more controlled, glued low end that way. And we're going to bring the gain up just a touch to compensate for some of that compression there. And then we're also going to do a little bit of enhancement here on our next plugin, which is the Vitamin. So let's go to harmonic. We're going to go to Vitamin. Let me unsolo that. And then Vitamin's really cool because we're enhancing different frequency bands, controlling things the same way we kind of do with multiband compression, except we're adding some sonic enhancement, excitement, and then we're also able to manipulate the stereo field or the width. So this is really cool because we can change the width of like the low end, the high end, the mids, and it gives you 5 different bands to work with, which is really cool. So let's go ahead and once again set the low end to 120. And with mastering, you know, we want that low end stuff to be more anchored to the center, more mono. You'll see here if I press play and we widen that.
Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to.
It just gets less focused, not as pleasant. So let's just go ahead and narrow that out a little bit. Okay, now let's go to the high end.
Now you're saying let it all fade.
Already got plenty of top end here, so I'm not going to enhance that, but we are going to widen it.
Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to stay. You make my heart so warm. Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to.
I like that that band right here.
Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to.
And just kind of go down them the same way, just soloing things, and then we'll listen to it all together.
Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to stay. You make my heart so warm inside. I thought you were.
Just a little bit there.
Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to stay.
So we get a much wider, more exciting mix in terms of the sound stage. So let me turn that off and on.
Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to stay. You make my heart so warm inside. I thought you were so.
Pretty cool, right? All right, so the last thing, I'm sure some of you have been waiting for this, but this is why I do this at the end, because I don't want level and loudness to be really making the mastering decisions for me. Just because it's louder doesn't mean it's better, right? So want to do this last. So I'm going to add the L1 plus, and we are going to go ahead and set our domain to true peak. Very important these days to adhere to true peak, keep things below 0 as we're going from digital to analog. I'm sure you all have read up about this, but a lot of the new streaming services and platforms are keeping a close eye on true peak. And if you're going above 0 in true peak, you could get penalized, and it could also result in just distortion and unpleasant things that you weren't expecting. So we want to just keep it below there. I'm going to set this to about minus 0.5 just to be safe. And then we're going to change the noise shaping to ultra. We're not going to get too in depth with this today in terms of the dithering and the noise shaping stuff. We're going to leave this pretty much as is. And then we're just going to pull down the threshold and then also switching back to the Paz analyzer. I'm going to use RMS today. Obviously, that's the measurement tool that Paz gives us. So I'm going to use that.
Now you're saying let it all fade away, but I really want you to stay. You make my heart so warm inside. I thought you were so down for the ride. Although you may not be the one for me, I feel like you're my everything. Fast forward, run it back, but we can start it over. You may not be the one that's for me. Give you time and not apologies. Stop and think it over. Play it back and start it over. You may not be the one that's for me, but you are all that I ever need. Rushing the field, rushing the build. You went from wanting to chill to wanting to kneel. I'll play the cards, but I will deal.
So let's go to the loudest part here.
Pulling me down. Look at his back.
Sounding pretty good, y'all. Sounding pretty good. I made a couple of tweaks on the C4. As you bring up the maximizer, you may notice some things once it gets louder that you do want to tweak a bit. So that's okay. Go back and make those adjustments. But then just making sure that we're at about where we need to be in terms of commercial loudness. All right, y'all. So we just mastered a track from scratch using Studio Rack and the Waves Gold plugins. You do not have to be a scientist to be a mastering engineer. You can master your own work and you can do it with plugins and still get great results. It's just a matter of developing your taste, developing your intuition. So a lot of the mixing processing that you're doing using these various plugins, it's going to be directly applicable to the things you're doing in mastering. It's just we're making a lot smaller sorts of brushstrokes and we're trying to just kind of subtly enhance and then tame certain problems. So don't think of mastering as something that we're going to be, doing tons and tons of heavy lifting and heavy boosts and all that. If you're having to do that, then you should probably go back to the mixing process, which we talk a lot about on the channel. The mastering process is going to add that last little bit of magic, bring everything to commercial levels while retaining the dynamics. So that's another important thing. You heard everything that we did, even once we got to the limiting. Nothing changed in terms of the way our drums were punching and just the core essence of the dynamics in this track. I do not want to affect that except in enhancing it and accentuating it. So I hope this helps y'all. If you have any questions about how we approach this master, then feel free to leave a comment below. If you learned anything in the video, please like, subscribe, and consider sharing. We'll talk to you soon.
Fast forward, run it back, but we can start it over. You may not be the one that's for me. Give you time and not apologies. Stop and pick it up. Play it back and start it over. You may not